Hey everyone, welcome back to our English Learning Podcast. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like you were finally improving in English, and then suddenly everything fell apart? Maybe you had a conversation where you couldn't find the right words, or you forgot a word you've known for months. That feeling of hitting a wall. It's frustrating, right? Here's the thing. Setbacks are normal. They happen to every learner. But how you respond to setbacks determines whether you'll succeed or give up. And today, we're going to show you exactly how to stay mentally strong, even when you feel like you're failing. We'll give you the tools to handle setbacks, rebuild your confidence, and keep improving, no matter what.
That's right. By the end of this episode, you'll understand why setbacks happen, how to control your emotions when they hit, and how to bounce back stronger. We'll share real-life examples from other learners, practical exercises you can use immediately, and mindset shifts that will change the way you think about mistakes.
So if you've been feeling stuck, don't worry. You're about to discover how setbacks can actually become your greatest advantage. Let's get started. Chapter 1. Why Setbacks Happen. All right, let's talk about something that almost every language learner struggles with. Setbacks. You know that feeling when you've been working hard, putting in the time, and it feels like you're finally making progress. But then, suddenly, it's like you've forgotten everything. Maybe you're in the middle of a conversation, and your mind just goes blank. Or you're trying to recall a word you know you learned last week, but it's gone. You feel embarrassed. You feel frustrated. You start thinking, maybe I'm just not good at this. Sound familiar? But what if I told you that setbacks aren't a sign that you're failing? They're a sign that you're about to break through to the next level. Because that's exactly what's happening. And once you understand why, you'll never feel discouraged by setbacks again.
Yes, a lot of learners expect progress to be a straight line, that if you study every day, you'll keep improving at the same pace. But that's not how language learning works. Progress is not linear. It's more like climbing a mountain. Sometimes you're moving upward, sometimes you hit a flat spot, and sometimes it feels like you're sliding backward. But even when you feel like you're not improving, your brain is working behind the scenes, processing and organizing everything you've learned. I had a student named Julia from Italy. She was making incredible progress, understanding native speakers, using more complex vocabulary. And then, one day she completely froze during a conversation. She couldn't remember basic words. She told me, "I feel like I've gone backward, like I'm worse than when I started." And after that, she started doubting herself.
That's exactly how setbacks trick you. They make you feel like you're losing progress. But that's not what's happening. Your brain is actually upgrading. When you struggle to remember a word or phrase, it's because your brain is in the process of locking that information into long-term memory. Let me give you another example. I had a student named Diego from Brazil. He told me, "I was doing great. I was understanding more conversations, speaking more confidently. And then I had one bad conversation where I couldn't find the right words. After that, I started feeling like I wasn't good at English anymore." But here's the truth. Diego wasn't going backward. His brain was working behind the scenes, building stronger neural connections. When you hit a wall, it's not because you're failing. It's because your brain is adjusting and getting ready to level up.
That's right. Think about how babies learn to walk. First they crawl, then they take a few steps in air, and then they fall. Falling doesn't mean they're not learning. It means they're building the strength and coordination to walk better next time. That's exactly how language learning works. When you struggle, that's your brain building strength.
And here's why setbacks feel so painful. Your brain hates uncertainty. When you make a mistake, your brain activates the fear response. It releases cortisol, the stress hormone. That's why you freeze up during conversations. That's why you feel embarrassed when you make a mistake. I remember when I was learning Spanish. I was in a cafe in Madrid, and I tried to order a coffee with milk. But instead of saying café con leche, I said café con hielo, coffee with ice. The waiter gave me a confused look, and I felt so embarrassed. But you know what? After that, I never forgot the word leche. That mistake locked the correct word into my memory.
Yes, that's how your brain works. It remembers mistakes more than it remembers passive learning. So when you make a mistake, it's not a failure. It's your brain learning faster. But here's where most learners go wrong. They internalize the mistake. Instead of thinking, I'm learning, they think, I'm bad at this. And that thought pattern creates a negative feedback loop. I had a student named Carlos from Spain. He was getting better at speaking. Until one day he forgot how to say a simple phrase during a business call. He told me I felt so embarrassed. After that, I started avoiding speaking English at work altogether. That's what happens when you let negative thinking take over. It makes you pull back even though you're improving.
Exactly. The problem isn't the mistake. The problem is how you think about the mistake. If you say to yourself, I'm bad at English, your brain starts to believe that. And when your brain believes that, you stop trying.
That's why setbacks aren't the real problem. The problem is your response to the setback. If you tell yourself this is part of the process, your brain stays open and flexible. But if you tell yourself I'm failing, your brain shuts down. And that's when progress stops.
Let me give you a powerful mindset shift. Setbacks are proof that you're learning. If you weren't making mistakes, that would mean you're not challenging yourself enough. Think about it. If you're working out at the gym and your muscles never feel sore, it means you're not pushing hard enough. But if you're struggling, that means you're getting stronger. The same rule applies to language learning. If you're not struggling, you're not growing.
So here's what I want you to remember. 1. Struggling means you're learning. 2. Forgetting means your brain is processing. 3. Making mistakes means you're pushing yourself. Setbacks are not failure. They are proof that you're improving.
Yes. And when you start seeing setbacks as progress, your confidence will skyrocket. You'll stop avoiding conversations. You'll stop feeling nervous about making mistakes, because you'll understand that mistakes are helping you improve.
And here's the key. Don't just understand this mentally. Start practicing it emotionally. The next time you make a mistake, instead of saying, I'm bad at this, say, my brain is learning right now. When you shift your emotional response, setbacks stop being painful and start becoming motivating.
Let's try this right now. I want you to say out loud, setbacks mean I'm learning. I'm improving every time I make a mistake. Every struggle makes me stronger. Feel the difference? That's not just positive thinking. That's reprogramming your brain to associate setbacks with growth. And when you master that, you become unstoppable.
That's why this matters. When you stop seeing setbacks as failure and start seeing them as progress, you build mental strength. You stop hesitating. You stop doubting yourself. You start improving faster than ever before.
So the next time you struggle, remember this conversation. Take a breath. Remind yourself that setbacks mean progress. And keep going. Because if you're struggling, you're already winning.
Chapter 2. How to mentally handle setbacks. All right, so now that you know setbacks are normal, let's talk about how to handle them without losing confidence. Because let's be honest, it's not the mistake that makes you feel bad. It's how you react to the mistake that breaks your confidence. Think about the last time you made a mistake while speaking English. Maybe you forgot a word in the middle of a conversation, or you used the wrong verb tense and someone corrected you. What happened next? Did you shrug it off and keep going, or did you freeze, get embarrassed, and stop talking? Most people panic when they make a mistake. They freeze up and start thinking, I'm so stupid, or I'm terrible at English. And that creates a physical response in your body. Your heart starts racing, your face gets hot, and your brain goes into fight or flight mode. That's why you can't think clearly, because your brain is focused on survival instead of communication. I had a student named Maria from Mexico. She told me, I can understand almost everything when I'm listening, but when it's my turn to speak, my mind goes blank. She said, it's like my brain just shuts down. But that wasn't because Maria didn't know enough English. It was because her body was reacting to stress. Her brain was flooded with cortisol, the stress hormone, and that's what caused her to freeze.
That's exactly why emotional control matters. When your brain is in panic mode, you can't process information correctly. That's why you forget simple words, or you mix up basic grammar. It's not because you're bad at English. It's because your brain is stressed. That's why the first step to handling setbacks is learning how to calm your brain. When you make a mistake, instead of panicking, pause, take a breath, and tell yourself, this is part of learning. That simple shift calms your nervous system and helps your brain think more clearly. Let's try it right now. Wherever you are, stop for a second. Take a deep breath in. Hold it for 4 seconds and breathe out slowly. Feel the tension leaving your body. That's how you reset your brain in real time. Now, I want to challenge you. I'm going to say a common negative thought, and I want you to flip it into a positive one. Don't overthink it. Just respond naturally. Ready? 1. I'm terrible at English. 2. I always forget vocabulary. 3. I'm scared of making mistakes. 4. I'll never be fluent. See how that works? You're not ignoring the problem. You're focusing on the progress. That small mental shift makes a huge difference.
Yes. And let's talk about why this works. When you say, I'm terrible at English, your brain starts looking for proof that it's true. If you stumble during a conversation, your brain says, see, you're not good at this. But when you say, I'm improving every day, your brain also starts looking for proof that it's true. And you know what happens? You start noticing small wins, like understanding a new word or finishing a sentence without hesitation. I had a student named Luca from Italy. He told me, I'm not good at English. I always make mistakes. So I told him to change the story. Instead of saying, I'm not good at English, he started saying, I'm getting better every day. After 2 weeks, he came back and said, I feel more confident, and I didn't even realize how much I was improving. His brain was literally training itself to focus on progress instead of failure.
That's the power of positive framing. Your brain is wired to respond to the story you tell it. If you tell yourself you're failing, your brain will find proof that you're failing. But if you tell yourself you're learning, your brain will find proof that you're growing. Let me give you a practical example. Let's say you're in the middle of a conversation and you forget a word. Your first reaction might be, oh no, I'm terrible at this. But here's what you do instead. Smile, take a breath, and say, wait, give me a second. It's on the tip of my tongue. That's what native speakers do all the time. They don't panic. They stay relaxed and let the word come to them.
Yes. And here's another tip. If you forget a word, try describing it instead. If you can't remember the word for scissors, you can say, the thing you use to cut paper. Native speakers do this all the time, and no one will think you're not fluent. I had a student named Aisha from Egypt. She was terrified of forgetting words during conversations, so we practiced using filler phrases to stay calm while thinking. Instead of freezing, she started saying, let me think for a second. That's a good question. How can I say this? That gave her brain a moment to catch up. And guess what happened? Her speaking confidence skyrocketed.
Exactly. That's called strategic pausing. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of confidence. When you pause instead of panicking, You sound more controlled and more fluent, even if you're searching for words. Let's try this right now. I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to respond using a filler phrase, even if you don't know the exact answer. Ready? 1. What's your favorite city? 2. What's one thing you love about learning English? 3. What's one goal you have for next year?
That's how you stay calm under pressure. You don't have to be perfect. You just need to keep the conversation going. That's what fluent speakers do. They don't panic when they make mistakes.
And here's another key. Stop apologizing for mistakes. A lot of learners say, "Sorry, my English isn't good." Don't do that. If you make a mistake, keep going. Laugh about it if you want, but don't apologize. I had a student named Kevin from South Korea. He would apologize every time he made a mistake, and that made him more nervous. So I told him, "Stop saying sorry. Just correct yourself and keep going." After that, he started speaking more freely, and his fluency improved fast.
Confidence doesn't come from speaking perfectly. It comes from handling mistakes without fear. When you can stay calm during a setback, that's when you know you've built real confidence.
So here's what I want you to remember. 1. When you make a mistake, pause and breathe. 2. Use a filler phrase to give yourself time to think. 3. Stop apologizing and keep going. 4. Reframe mistakes as learning moments, not failures. Chapter 3. How to stop overthinking and stay calm under pressure. Let's talk about something that kills fluency faster than anything else. Overthinking. Have you ever started speaking, and suddenly your brain starts spinning out of control? You're thinking, am I using the right tense? Did I pronounce that word correctly? What if they don't understand me? And before you know it, you freeze. That's overthinking, and it's one of the biggest barriers to speaking confidently. Your brain gets so caught up in trying to be perfect that you can't focus on the actual conversation. I had a student named Michael from Germany. He told me, "I know the words, I know the grammar, but when it's time to speak, my brain just shuts down." And here's why. When you overthink, your brain switches from flow mode to analysis mode. And analysis mode is slow. It's the reason why you can't remember a word when you're under pressure, even though you know you've studied it before.
Yes. Overthinking happens because your brain is trying to protect you from failure. But here's the problem. Fluency doesn't come from being perfect. It comes from being relaxed. When your brain is in stress mode, it releases cortisol, the stress hormone, and that blocks clear thinking. That's why you blank out when you're nervous. Let me give you a real example. I had a student named Rachel from France. She was amazing at writing and listening, but when it came to speaking, she would freeze. She told me, "I keep thinking about how I sound. I'm so worried about saying the wrong thing that I don't say anything at all." That's classic overthinking, and it's completely normal.
So how do you stop overthinking? The first step is to shift your focus from perfection to flow. You don't need to say every word correctly. You just need to keep the conversation going. Let me ask you, if someone said to you, "I go store yesterday," would you understand what they meant? Of course you would. You wouldn't stop them and say, "Actually, the correct form is, I went to the store yesterday." You'd understand what they meant, and you'd keep the conversation going. That's exactly how native speakers respond when you make a mistake. They care about understanding you, not whether your grammar is perfect.
Exactly. And here's the secret. Native speakers make mistakes all the time. They use the wrong tense, they forget words, but they keep going. That's the difference between fluent speakers and struggling learners. Fluent speakers don't overthink their mistakes. I had a student named Marco from Italy. He told me, I can't speak English because I'm scared of sounding stupid. So we practiced a simple mindset shift. Instead of focusing on mistakes, I told him to focus on connection. If the person understood him, that was success. After 2 weeks, Marco told me, I stopped trying to be perfect, and suddenly, I started speaking more naturally.
That's the goal, connection, not perfection. So if you make a mistake, don't stop. Keep going. If you say, I go store yesterday, and you realize it's wrong, just correct yourself and keep speaking. That's exactly what native speakers do. And here's the second step. Train your brain to respond automatically without overthinking. When you're in a conversation, your goal is to stay in flow mode, not analysis mode. Let's try an exercise right now. I'm going to ask you some simple questions, and I want you to answer as quickly as possible. Don't overthink it. Just respond naturally. Ready? 1. What's your favorite food? 2. Where are you from? 3. What did you have for breakfast today? 4. What's one thing you love about learning English? See how that works? No pressure, just natural responses. That's how you train your brain to stay relaxed during real conversations.
And here's the key. If you don't know the exact answer, just say something. If someone asks, what's your favorite city, and you can't remember the name, you can say, oh, it's the one near the ocean, or it's the capital of Italy. The goal isn't to be perfect. The goal is to keep the conversation going. I had a student named Lena from Egypt. She was so scared of making mistakes that she would stop talking if she didn't know the right word. So, we practiced using filler phrases, and it completely changed her confidence. Here's an example of some filler phrases you can use when you need a second to think. Let me think for a second. That's a good question. I'm not sure how to say it, but how can I explain this? Let's try it right now. I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to use a filler phrase before answering. Ready? 1. What's your favourite movie? 2. Where would you like to travel? 3. What's one thing you'd like to improve in English?
See how that works? When you use filler phrases, you stay in control of the conversation, and you give your brain time to catch up. That's exactly what fluent speakers do.
And here's the third step. Stop apologizing for mistakes. A lot of learners say, sorry, my English isn't good. Don't do that. If you make a mistake and keep going, laugh if you want to, but don't apologize. I had a student named Carlos from Brazil. He would say, sorry, sorry, every time he made a mistake. And that made him feel even more nervous. So I told him to stop apologizing and just keep talking. After that, his confidence skyrocketed because he stopped being afraid of mistakes.
Here's why this works. When you stop apologizing, you train your brain to see mistakes as normal. Instead of feeling embarrassed, you stay focused on the conversation. Let me give you a practical example. If you say, I go to the store yesterday, and someone corrects you, just say, oh, right, I went to the store yesterday. Anyway, I bought some great coffee. See what happened? You acknowledged the mistake, but you didn't freeze. You kept going. That's what fluent speakers do. They don't panic over mistakes. They adjust and keep the conversation moving.
So here's the strategy. 1. Focus on flow, not perfection. 2. Train your brain with quick responses and filler phrases. 3. Stop apologizing and keep talking. 4. If you get corrected, thank the person, adjust, and keep going. Chapter 4. How to handle criticism without losing confidence. Let's be honest, no one likes being corrected. When someone corrects you, it feels personal. You might start thinking, I'm not good at this, or they think I'm stupid. But here's the truth. Correction isn't rejection. It's feedback. And feedback is how you grow. I had a student named Maria from Spain. She was improving fast, learning new vocabulary, speaking more naturally, but every time someone corrected her, she would shut down. She told me, It feels embarrassing when someone corrects me, like they're pointing out how bad I am. But here's what I told her. Being corrected means people are listening. It means they care enough to help you get better. And that's exactly how you need to see criticism, not as a sign that you're failing, but as a sign that you're improving. If someone is correcting you, that means they understand you well enough to help you. That's actually a good thing.
Exactly. Think about it. When you're learning a new skill, whether it's playing the guitar or learning to drive, you expect someone to correct you, right? You wouldn't get offended if your driving instructor told you to check your mirrors. You'd be grateful. That's how you need to think about language correction. It's guidance, not judgment. But here's where most learners go wrong. When they get corrected, they freeze. They think, I'm doing it wrong, and then they stop talking. That's the mistake. Correction is supposed to make you better, not make you stop. I had a student named Diego from Brazil. He was terrified of being corrected because he thought it meant he wasn't good at English. So he would avoid conversations completely, just to avoid the possibility of being wrong. That's what fear of correction does. It stops you from improving.
Yes. And here's the problem. When you avoid being corrected, you also avoid opportunities to improve. You're playing it safe, and that means you're not growing. So, how do you handle correction without losing confidence? First, change the way you respond. Most people apologize when they get corrected. They say, "Oh, I'm sorry, my English isn't good." Don't do that. Apologizing reinforces the idea that making mistakes is bad, and it's not. Here's what you say instead. "Oh, thanks for letting me know." Repeat the correction. "Ah, so it's goes instead of go. Got it." Then, keep going. Let's break that down. First, by saying, "Thanks for letting me know," you show confidence. You're telling the other person that you're open to learning, and that's powerful. Second, by repeating the correction, you reinforce the correct structure in your mind. That's how you lock it into memory. Third, by continuing the conversation, you show that you're not shaken by the correction, and that builds trust and respect with native speakers.
Yes, and let me give you a real example. I was working with a student named Kevin from South Korea. He was speaking to a colleague and said, "He go to the store yesterday." His colleague corrected him and said, "It's he went, not he go." And you know what Kevin did? He said, "Ah, right, he went, thanks." And then he kept talking. He didn't apologize, he didn't freeze, he adjusted and moved on. And guess what happened? That moment helped Kevin lock down the correct past tense. He learned faster because he handled the correction with confidence. That's what fluent speakers do. They don't panic when they're corrected. They don't apologize, they adjust, and they keep going.
And here's the thing. When you handle correction with confidence, you actually gain respect from native speakers. When you say, "Oh, thanks for letting me know," you show that you're serious about improving, and that makes people more likely to want to help you. I had a student named Rachel from France. She was nervous about speaking English at work because she thought her colleagues would judge her mistakes. So we practiced handling correction with confidence. I told her, if someone corrects you, don't apologize, thank them, and keep going. After a few weeks, Rachel told me, "I stopped feeling embarrassed, and now my colleagues are actually helping me improve." That's the power of confidence.
Yes, and here's another trick. If you don't understand the correction, ask for clarification. Most learners are scared to ask questions because they think it will make them look weak, but it's actually the opposite. Asking for clarification shows confidence and self-awareness. Here's what you can say if you don't understand the correction. "Oh, can you say that again? What's the difference between goes and went? Can you give me another example?" When you ask for clarification, two things happen. First, you make sure you actually learn the correct usage. Second, you show the other person that you're serious about improving. That builds respect. and it makes the other person more willing to help you next time.
That's so true. And here's one more key. Don't let correction change the flow of the conversation. If someone corrects you, don't stop talking. Keep going. Here's an example. If you say, he go to the store yesterday, and someone says, actually it's he went, you say, oh, right, he went. Anyway, he bought some milk. See what happened? You corrected yourself, but you kept the flow going. That's exactly what fluent speakers do. Let's try it right now. I'm going to say a sentence with a mistake, and I want you to correct me and keep the conversation going. I go to the park yesterday. She liked pizza a lot. We was talking about that last week. Good. That's exactly how you build confidence. Mistakes don't stop you, they help you improve.
And here's the most important thing. Correction is not personal. It's not a judgment. It's a tool for improvement. If someone corrects you, it doesn't mean you're bad at English. It means you're serious enough about improving that people want to help you. So here's the strategy. 1. When someone corrects you, thank them. 2. Repeat the correction to lock it in. 3. If you don't understand, ask for clarification. 4. Keep going. Don't let the correction stop the conversation.
Chapter 5. How to stay consistent, even when motivation drops. Motivation is great, but consistency is more important. Motivation comes and goes. It's unpredictable. Some days you wake up feeling inspired and ready to study, and other days you can't even get yourself to open a book. That's normal. It happens to everyone. But here's the thing. Motivation is a feeling, and feelings are unreliable. You can't build fluency by relying on motivation alone, because some days it just won't be there. That's why consistency is so important. If you build a habit, if you train yourself to practice even when you don't feel like it, that's when real progress happens. I had a student named Emma from France. She told me, I'm so motivated at the beginning of the week, but by Thursday I'm tired and I skip my practice. And you know what happens? One missed day turns into 2. 2 days turns into a week. And before you know it, she's lost momentum. But here's the truth. Fluency isn't about intensity. It's about showing up every day, even if it's just for 5 or 10 minutes. It's the small daily effort that creates real improvement over time.
Exactly. Let me ask you this. If you wanted to get in shape, would you work out really hard for one day? Or would you work out consistently for 10 minutes a day? We all know the answer. Consistency beats intensity every time. Fluency works the same way. Practicing for 10 minutes every day is better than studying for 3 hours once a week. Why? Because when you practice every day, you build momentum, and your brain starts forming long-term connections. I had a student named Marco from Italy. He told me, I study for hours on the weekend, but by Wednesday, I feel like I've forgotten everything. That's because his brain wasn't building daily connections. He was flooding it with information once a week, and then letting it slip away. So we changed his routine. Instead of studying for 2 hours once a week, we switched to 10 minutes every day. After 2 weeks, Marco told me, I feel like I'm actually improving faster, and it doesn't even feel like I'm working that hard. That's the power of consistency.
That's why habit building matters more than motivation. You can't control motivation, but you can control your habits. If you build the right habits, you'll keep improving even when you don't feel like studying. Let me give you a simple formula for building a habit that sticks. 1. Set a fixed study time. Same time every day, even if it's just 10 minutes. 2. Keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it. Listen to a podcast, use flashcards, or read an article. 3. Track your progress. Write down one win every day, even something small like I remembered a new word today. 4. Celebrate consistency, not perfection. If you miss a day, don't beat yourself up. Just get back on track the next day. Let's break that down step by step.
Step 1. Set a fixed study time. This is the foundation of consistency. You need to attach your English practice to something you already do every day. For example, practice right after your morning coffee or right before you go to bed. When you attach your practice to an existing habit, it becomes automatic. I had a student named Kevin from South Korea. He struggled with consistency because he was always busy with work. So we set a goal: 5 minutes of English practice every morning while drinking coffee. Just 5 minutes. And guess what happened? After a month, Kevin was doing 20 minutes a day without even thinking about it. It became part of his routine.
Yes, and that's the trick. Start small. Don't aim for an hour of study time. You won't stick to it. Start with 5 or 10 minutes. It's better to study for 5 minutes a day consistently than to study for an hour once a week and then give up. Step 2. Keep it simple. Don't overthink it. You don't need a complicated study plan. Just pick 1 or 2 easy activities. Here's an example. Listen to a podcast for 5 to 10 minutes. Review vocabulary flashcards. Read a short article or a few paragraphs of a book. Speak to yourself in English for a few minutes. It's not about intensity, it's about consistency. If you're practicing regularly, even simple activities will build up over time.
Exactly. And here's the next step: track your progress. When you track your wins, you give your brain a dopamine hit, and that motivates you to keep going. I had a student named Diego from Brazil. He told me, "I don't feel like I'm improving." But when we started tracking his wins, even small ones, he started noticing his progress. He'd write down things like, "I understood a full sentence today. I had a conversation without freezing. I remembered 3 new words." After a month, Diego said, "I feel like I'm finally improving, and I didn't even realize how much progress I was making." That's the power of tracking wins.
And here's the thing. When you track progress, it shifts your focus from what you can't do to what you can do. Instead of thinking, I still can't have a full conversation, you start thinking, I understood that podcast, or I remembered that new word. That's how you build momentum. Step 4. Celebrate consistency, not perfection. You don't need to be perfect, you just need to be consistent. If you miss a day, don't beat yourself up. Just get back on track the next day. I had a student named Rachel from France. She told me, if I miss one day, I feel like I've failed. So I told her, it's not about how many days you miss, it's about how quickly you get back on track. After that, Rachel stopped focusing on the days she missed, and she started focusing on how quickly she could bounce back. And that's when her progress accelerated.
That's a huge shift. When you stop focusing on perfection and start focusing on consistency, you stop feeling guilty when you miss a day, and that keeps you motivated long-term. Here's another tip. Create a don't break the chain calendar. Every day you practice, even for 5 minutes, put a check mark on your calendar. After a week, you'll start to see a chain of check marks. And once you see that chain, you won't want to break it.
Yes, and here's the final step. Reward yourself. If you hit your goal, celebrate it. Watch your favorite show, treat yourself to a snack, give your brain a reason to want to keep going.
Here's your strategy. 1. Set a fixed study time. 2. Keep it simple. 3. Track your wins. 4. Focus on consistency, not perfection. 5. Reward yourself for progress.
And here's your challenge. For the next 7 days, practice English every day for just 5 to 10 minutes. Keep it simple. Track your progress. And celebrate your wins. If you do that, you'll see how much consistency accelerates your learning. Keep learning, keep growing, and remember, every mistake is making you stronger. We'll see you in the next episode.